Hello, I'm Jason with MathTutorDVD.com, and here we're going to talk about what I think is one of the really neatest things about this calculator, and that's the way that it handles fractions. Everyone here in the beginning has problems with fractions and learning how to work with them, and with practice you get better. But the way this calculator handles fractions really makes it absolutely bulletproof for anyone to get the right answer and to check your work. So the main thing to note is that anytime you do division in this calculator with the division symbol here, like 7 divided by 8, most calculators would go ahead and put a decimal as the answer, go ahead and do this division. But the TI-89 is basically going to keep it as a fraction. So when you pull it out of the box, the first thing you do is you start doing basic calculations, and the first thing a student does usually is try to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. When you start doing division, even simple things like 5 divided by 5, well, in that case, it's an exact answer. But if you do something else like 5 divided by 10, it's going to leave the answer in terms of a fraction, and that's really frustrating. 4/5, for instance, you just put the input 4/5 and it sticks 4/5 out. And so if you don't know what the calculator is trying to do, it's a little bit of a mystery. And so basically, if you go here into the mode menu, and we've talked about this a little bit before, but if you go on page 2, you'll see that in the exact approximate, we're in automatic mode. And what that means is that any calculation that I do here, if it's a fraction that it can simplify, it will try to simplify the fraction, but it's generally going to leave all fractions as fractions because that's a more exact representation of what you put in. It's not going to do the long division and put it into decimals unless you tell it to. So that's the way it defaults, and you can override that in the mode menu, and I'll show you how to do that here in a second. But it's very powerful because, for instance, let's go and say, what if we, if you're doing really basic algebra, let's say you were doing something like you forgot how to simplify the fraction 16/64, right? So let me go back and make this 64. So if you put 16 divided by 64 in a normal calculator, it'll do the division and it'll put a decimal out there. But in the TI-89, this is a fraction, and if you put it on there, it's basically going to try to simplify that fraction, and it's going to simplify it to 1/4. And you don't have to really tell it to do that. It's just automatically going to simplify fractions. All right, now, if you get an answer as a fraction like we have here, and you decide, okay, I don't want to really look at the fraction representation, I really want to know what the decimal is, my recommendation to you is just to go and hit the green button here. You don't have to do anything other than the fact that you do a calculation, you see a fraction as a result, hit the green button and hit the squiggly equal sign, which means approximation, approximately equal to, and then it will simply do the same calculation again, but it'll give you the decimal equivalent of it. So you really have the best of both worlds. You can work with fractions, and the calculator will do all the heavy lifting on the common denominators and everything, and the simplifications. But if you do want to see the decimal, you can. So, another very simple one, 5 divided by 10. We all know that 5/10 is the same as 1/2. It's a very simple thing. The calculator can do that as well. And if you want to know what the decimal representation, just hit this green squiggly equals, and it'll tell you that's 0.5. That's exactly what we want. Now, most of the time, you're not going to be just putting fractions into this calculator to see how they are reduced, but you might add or subtract fractions quite a bit. What if you wanted to take 1/2 and add it to 1/2? And so we're just doing a simple thing that you know the answer to. That's why I'm doing it here. So the calculator is going to add these things together, and it's going to arrive at the value of 1. And it's done all of the heavy lifting behind the scenes. It's added the numerators together to get 2/2, and then it simplifies 2/2 to get a value of 1. What if you have 1/4 plus 1/4? The calculator is going to add them together and get 2/4, but it's not going to stop there. It's going to take 2/4 and it's going to simplify that and give you 1/2. So it's extremely powerful if you've got, 1/8 plus 1/6 plus 1/2. Even for me by hand, it would take me a little bit of time to get the common denominator necessary so that I have everything in a common denominator, and then add the numerators, get the fraction, and then simplify the fraction. But with the TI-89, you just put it in there, and it's going to tell you that that's 19/24. The common denominator was 24. You know, you can just go ahead and figure that out by hand, no problem. But the TI-89 does it all seamlessly, and if you want to know what the decimal equivalent is, you just hit this guy down here, and then you can get the decimal equivalent as well. It's extremely powerful, and that's just basic addition. What if you're doing something more complicated? What if you have actually, let me get rid of this decimal here. What if you have 1/2 minus 1/4, right? And then you're going to say plus, let's do 1/3, and then let's multiply that by 4/3. Okay, and it's going to, you see how it evaluates the fraction here. It's not quite what I intended. You've got the 1/2 minus the 1/4 plus, and then on the numerator here, it treats the 1s divided by 3 times 4 as the numerator of this other fraction. If I wanted to go and make it a little bit clearer, what I was really trying to do is something like if I want to add a few more parentheses just to make it explicit, I could put a parenthesis here, and I can say this is 1/3 multiplied by this guy right here. So with the parentheses in place, it's clear that what I'm trying to do is take 1/3 fraction and multiply it by 4/3 the fraction, and that's all in there. And of course, you're going to get basically the same thing as a result, but I'm a little bit more explicit in what I'm doing. So it's doing all of this fraction arithmetic behind the scenes, and if you want to know what 25/36 is, you just hit the squiggly equal sign, and then you get your decimal equivalent back. So it works with all of the guys here. Now, one more thing I do want to tell you. If you get a fraction answer, let's pick something simple, 0.75, and you want to convert that back to a fraction. Maybe you're doing a long calculation, you get a decimal as a result, and you want to see what fraction that's equal to. The calculator can do that as well. The easiest way to pull that off is to go into the math menu, second function math, and go into the number menu, the flyout, and hit the exact, this first one here, number 1. So you can hit either number 1 because of the number 1 here, or you can just hit enter. So let's hit enter. So you have exact 0.75 and close it off, and it'll tell you that 0.75 is 3/4. So you can use the built-in functions of the calculator to keep everything in fractional form, and then get a fractional answer that's simplified. And then you can also turn around and take any decimal that you get, and if it's possible to convert that decimal to a fraction, then it'll do that. Now, if you put something crazy in here, 0.7587, then it might just give you something like 7587 over 10,000 because that's the exact representation here. That's about the best you can do. But with common fractions like, if you get 0.2 and you forget what fraction that is, and it can convert that to 1/5 for you. If you're going to use mixed fractions in any kind of calculation, let's say you have the fraction 1 3/4. Well, don't forget what 1 3/4 really is. 1 3/4 is the same thing as saying 1 plus 3/4. That's 1 3/4. So if you do this, you're going to get, it's going to convert that again to a regular improper fraction for you of 7/4. So if you were going to take 1 3/4, let's say, as a fraction, and you were going to add it to, let's open up another one, 2 4/5. So this could be a fraction problem that you might have to work out. 1 3/4 plus 2 4/5. Then it'll do all the heavy lifting and figure out that the fraction that you care about is 91/20. Now, if you want to convert this back to a mixed fraction, you'll have to do that on your own, but at least you can get down to the basic answer. And if you want to know what the decimal equivalent is, you just hit the squiggly enter down here, and there you go. One more thing I want to show you, and I did cover this in the section on the mode menu, but I want to show you the mode menu real quick one more time, page 2. All of this stuff with fractions is happening because we're in automatic mode. You have a choice of auto, exact, or approximate. If I put the calculator in approximate mode, then it's going to behave like a regular calculator. 4/5 is going to return a decimal. 8/9 is going to return a decimal. So if you take 1/2 plus 3/4, then you're going to get decimals everywhere, and you're going to get 1.25. But if you go back into the mode menu to page 2, and we're in approximate right now, and if you go to the exact mode, it's going to force the calculator to treat this and keep an exact answer for you. And so you're going to get a fraction back. So the bottom line is, when you're in exact mode, basically all of the results are going to be represented as fractions because they're exact. If they can be. When you have it in approximate mode, everything's going to behave like a regular calculator with decimals. When you're in auto mode, the calculator is going to choose what to do. If it can represent it as a fraction, it will. If it can't, then it's just going to put it as a decimal. And if you have a decimal that you want to convert back to a fraction, you can always go in the math menu to the number menu and hit this exact guy and put 0.7, and it'll tell you what fraction that is, 7/10. It's a very, very powerful feature of the calculator. You use it constantly because you're always dealing with fractions, and it can really help you, speed up your execution of things, and give you practice with adding and subtracting fractions, and make sure that you're getting your common denominators right. I'm Jason. If I were you, I'd recommend leaving it in auto mode. That works fine. There's no reason not to. If you want to take a fraction and convert it to a decimal, you have a button right here that does it for you. At first it's a little bit off-putting, but after you get used to it, you'll realize how really, really cool it is that the calculator does that. And you can even do crazy things. Like, what if you wanted to have, I call it crazy, but 4/5, and what if you want to raise that fraction 4/5 to the power of 3? Well, you can do that. You know how to do that with the rules of algebra. And the calculator, it does it all, and then it simplifies the fraction for you. So 64/125. And if you want to know what decimal that is, you just hit this guy down here. Very, very, very powerful feature. Use it and get comfortable with it. It'll help you out on your test.